I'm the one who's going to give you just the key highlights around that. And maybe, Kennedy, do you want to put the groups or the themes, or it's not? Okay, let us proceed. Anyway, fine, okay. So for the regional hub, I think one of the things that was discussed was that the initiative having the regional coordination and national coordination, there is value. And the way the aspects that have been, the pillars that have been proposed have been seen to be relevant. However, there is value for the developers of this proposal to take some time to interact a bit more with the stakeholders, to kind of scan the landscape and find out those parties that we could leverage on to secure traction and even generate some harmony. And I think one thing that was very clear is that there's an opportunity for the initiative to kind of workshop that engagement so that there is an opportunity to bring on board quite a number of platforms and stakeholders to create some clarity on where the synergies can be and whether there is a specific entity that you'd want to kind of piggy ride on. So that was part one. Part two is that it was very clear that the coordination at a national level is key. So there's need to secure that at the implementation of the project level, there's need to secure coordination amongst the stakeholders who are there. But over and above that, because as you implement the project, there will be knowledge, good practices that are emerging, then there is need to kind of correlate that and consolidate that. So then the knowledge aspects of the platform becomes key. As to whether then we want to have it at a regional level in terms of knowledge, then there is need to figure out what are those opportunities for collaboration, which will give regional sense. And that's something that most members felt it would be useful if we could find a way to kind of take us through a process with those respective parties so that you see the opportunities for collaboration. So that was key. In terms of themes, they were okay with the themes that were there, but there were some key things that they brought out which I felt would be useful for us to talk about here. One is that the platform should be able to play the role of aggregating information. So how do we build information and make it available? Because there's a lot of information that is out there with different parties. So how do we make sure that that information is available for others to know? It doesn't have, you don't have to recreate a repository, but you could create a link to another repository that is specific to a specific area. So that role became key. And an example was given by the county governments, where it was, they are working on adaptation plans. Right there in the adaptation plans, there are opportunities for adaptation SMEs. So the information should be, that is one of the things you could do, so that even the adaptation SMEs that want to make interventions need to know what is Homa Bay is offering in that specific ward that is an opportunity for them to engage with. So that was a key part of that. Secondly was the question of community of practice. Given that we are talking about adaptation SMEs and financing of adaptation SMEs, what then are those key communities of practices that we could kind of congregate knowledge around, so that this becomes a place where practitioners could come on board and learn and gain from that. So that became another aspect of this engagement. Then there was then the question of giving voice. If this adaptation story, and therefore the adaptation SME story, and more importantly, the financing of adaptation SMEs and the actual beneficiaries, who will give voice to those people that are impacted on by these SMEs? So this becomes then an opportunity to give real, authentic voices a chance to be on the table. So that the platform then becomes something that could be used for that. So those are the key highlights. They did give more in written, so we'll collate that and give them back to you. So the group, mnaweza sema asanti, mnaweza simama ni muonekane tafadhali. Those who are yes, there was a cadre of very powerful people. Asanteni sana. Thank you very much. Then I'll move to the next group. Who was that? Is that Julia? Finance? Fine, please do.
Thank you. Yeah, Mark and I did facilitate the financing one. So you can see the very colorful wall here where we captured the insights from the discussion. I think it was a very lively discussion. Very good thoughts. I just highlight a few because I won't cover everything, unfortunately, here. So we talked, for instance, about performance-based payments and some experiences in that regard, and it became clear that we have to tie these very closely to what also the enterprise wants to achieve and their development plans, because otherwise it will be difficult to make it work. Then incentives for financial institutions was also another topic we were diving into to see, okay, what are incentives that could be provided to motivate FIs, banks mainly, to invest in adaptation SMEs. I think one interesting aspect that came up was that there are already quite a few incentives in the market, but the uptake is still quite low because there seem to be too much costs involved for some of these, especially with the guarantee schemes. But then, also reporting requirements are quite steep sometimes, so that makes then also the banks shy away from these incentives. So this is also something to keep in mind for the design of our catalytic finance facility. Then we talked also about adaptation as a funding theme, since adaptation is not a linear trajectory. This was mentioned, and it in many sectors requires also long tenures. So this is also something to keep in mind, especially with the limits we have with a 5 years project. We have to see how we can basically make it work to also allow for the enterprises to really scale their adaptation solutions and then also create the respective impacts. Then regarding gender and youth inclusion, I think it's clear, or it became clear in the discussion, that we need to provide targeted incentives specifically for these groups in order to really incentivize the SMEs. And I think this is twofold. So we can give financial incentives. Of course, we can say that we provide collateral grants specifically to those enterprises that are more gender or youth inclusive, but we also need to care about their own capabilities, so to see how the enterprise actually also understand how they can maybe increase gender and youth inclusion in their enterprise, which is another aspect that then needs to be factored in the technical assistance programs. And last point I have on my list is that, we should also differentiate between we should keep in mind that different financial institutions or banks, they also have different foci. So we should not just target them as such, but also look into what is their profile. I think it was mentioned some have a certain sustainability focus, maybe a focus in certain SDGs or in a certain sector like WASH. Others may have Islamic banking involved. So there are these different foci that also should also be considered when we start designing the catalytic finance facility to really be able to also leverage their focus and engage them in that specific sector. Okay, I think that's it for now, but happy to also share our insights, and thank you so much to the group. We were a very large group, and very lively discussion, and Can
we have the group stand up? Please.
And I'd like to emphasize the female representation in my group, which was very nice to have.
All right. Thank you very much. Then let's have Anne. So Anne Tech was moderating that. The gender and inclusion.
Thank you so much, Paul. I think we do have a presentation, which is very brief. The group felt that even as we discuss issues of youth and gender and youth, we need to ensure that first we put issues of SME adaptation, youth and gender in the same level. We keep talking about adaptation SME and forgetting the component of youth and gender. I think that is what the group requested. The other issue is we need to ensure that we have data on really how many, especially women and youth, who are involved in the SMEs, because we find that most of the businesses are said are women-led or youth-led, but you find that they are owned by families, so we need good data on that. You can go to the next slide. Then we need to be specific on the target groups. Are we talking about youth, women, or marginalized? So we need to be specific when presenting these groups. So those were the feelings of the group. The next slide, please. So we were looking at what are the key barriers of women and youth entrepreneurs to access commercial financing. We had a number. One is access to information on these opportunities. We had capacity to understand the technical areas of investing, or even general policy and regulatory framework. Issues of land. I know most of the banks would ask for collateral. I mean, land is an issue, which in Kenya, land is owned by men. We have culture and traditions, which is a big barrier. Most of the women, and especially local women, are not allowed to even access finance or even attend these trainings. Issues of literacy, nature of investment. Most of the financing institutions would go for, I mean, the usual investment and not invest in like camel milk, baobab, and moringa. Those small investments, they don't invest much on that. Then rigidity of the banks. Most of you are aware that there's, most of the bank would see what profit they would make from any investments. Distance, access to forms, especially when you're looking at mobile banking and language. And then the next slide, please. We have issues of formalization of business, and I think that was addressed during the intro of the project. Attitude, I know most of the youth would not go for the SMEs. Most would prefer the formal employment. Then the education system, I think in the country would not allow or would not support, SMEs, kind of education. Let's go to the next one. Good practices, there are proposals on training and timings of such trainings in areas where women can access and at their own convenience. Caregiving facilities where we have children play areas, and caregiving facilities like mattress for investors in farms, and providing for women to have mattresses for their children. Flexible working hours. Pre-investment support, where we involve the investors in the design of the projects. Then ring fencing women and youth targeted funds. We are looking at AGBO, the government fund, procurement opportunities, women and youth cooperatives, Biashara fund like in Isiolo. Investing in core facilities like buying machines for these SMEs. And then there's need for ownership, involving, just the same as involving in designing of the projects, initial involvement, then representation and participation of women in these committees, then mentorship and follow-up as a good practice. Next, please. Then the other question was, would women and youth entrepreneurs benefit from a women youth business clubs? Yes, we are saying no, yes. And some of these platforms are like social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube. We have other digital platforms on climate information system. We are given an example from Turkana. Then we have cooperatives, farmer cooperatives or business cooperative societies. We have financial institutions. I know there are many, but we mentioned some few. We also support women and youth chamas or women chamas. We have national association, such as Women in Trade or Women in Business. Then women chamas as well. I think that has been mentioned over and over. Then National Youth Council, youth committees at COG, Youth Sound Board. Those are just some of the examples. And Maendeleo Wanawake and Joiwa, just to mention some few. So thank you so much. I also want to recognize members of my group. You can stand. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Anne, for your presentation and your groups. Tuwapigie makofi tena. Thank you. Then I'll have now Belinda for the last group, and as she comes, I just wanted to say, Madam Ali, did you talk about riba? Okay, so it is somewhere. Okay, all right.
Thank you. My name is Belinda, and my group was focusing on the ecosystem and direct enterprise support, especially with regards to the marginalized groups in the rural areas. So the questions we had were on communication and how to particularly reach them. So the highlights of this particular question was identifying the challenges affecting communication currently and reviewing the methods that they're using and seeing what works and what doesn't work. Also identify the target groups that we want to reach and the age groups that they are in, so that we can actually now narrow down into the methods we're using. There was a slight debate about the effectiveness of using county government as opposed to other areas. But to diversify this particular risk of having the county government not be as effective, we'll also include CBOs, influential personalities in their communities, like such as church and schools, to be able to reach them, reach the particular groups. The language to be used here would be local languages, and also sorry, I am nervous. Simple words to reach this particular group, such as posters, graphics, something that can simplify what the project is about and the benefits of it. There is also a very huge need for conducting a needs assessment for the entire community, and then tailoring that particular message to be able to show the group what the theory of change for addressing that particular challenge would be. So that came out strongly. Yeah, that was it. The other one is investment, readiness, and knowledge product. So here there is eligibility criteria for the adaptation enterprises, like who specifically are these, and what sector of adaptation are they in, what challenges they have in accessing funding, then understanding the availability of the funding that they can access, and breaking down the criteria and addressing the gaps of what these particular communities would have to access that kind of financing, then have tailored this particular knowledge into the products. Other products to include would be ESG, storytelling and impact measurement, or especially on the particular sectors. Formalization, I mean, we are talking about marginalized groups, and maybe a lot of them you'd find are not formalized, and to access this kind of funding you would need to train on formalization. Then collaboration practices and the groups, the benefit of working in groups. So those are just the highlights. I do have more points, but I will happily give to Victor and the group. I'd also like to recognize my group. They were really, really good and very full of ideas. So kindly stand. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Belinda. Asante sana. Thank you all for what you have shared. I'm sure this is going to be incorporated in the conversations, and we really do appreciate the interactions and the inputs that you've given. This will be collated. So I'll be calling upon Victor. Is it Victor and Julia? Who's doing the next steps?
Julia can do it. Okay, let me do it. I can do it.
All right.
Yeah, okay. So the next step is basically in terms of timelines, and we thought this is good for all of us to know, because we'll still reach out for maybe additional information. Many other groups have said that we need to consult further on certain structures, how that would appear, especially the regional coordination and the national coordination platform. So until end of May, we are finalizing on the proposal. So this is apparently the last large gathering that we are going to have, but we'll have other smaller follow-ups. so that by June, we submit this for internal review, a full proposal development, a full proposal developed. We submit this to the lead partner, which is UNIDO, for their internal review. So as the accredited partner, they have to ensure that we are within certain, parameters, guidelines, and policies, and also put this together with what is required by the Adaptation Fund. That would be done. Then July, we are submitting the full proposal to Adaptation Fund. And the review would happen probably between August leading up to October. So the expectation is that there is a sitting usually in October, and that's the sitting that would look at this proposal. It is expected that some feedback would come from that. Such a document doesn't fail to generate additional information and queries, so that may run up to around December 2023. The first and second quarter of 2024 is actually expected to be the inception phase. If we win, we are going to win this. All these brains together and what I've listened to, I don't think we have a chance, Julia, to come back and say that we did not get anything. I don't think so. So that would be the inception phase, and that is basically the post-proposal approval. We will then engage with stakeholders again. So the moment we are ready with that, we come back with a stakeholders workshop. We will feedback on what we have gotten back from the Adaptation Fund in terms of what we need to work on during the inception phase, but we will also define materially how we are going to engage to deliver. Yeah, now engagement to deliver. And then I think there will be a lot of discussions around the regional and national platforms, because we have then to bring in Uganda into the conversation together with the stakeholders who are in this. So that would take a greater part of the inception phase. And we have to ensure that before we start rolling, we have whatever name we give it, but there has to be a steering organ that will then be supporting with this. So then we will launch. So that is Q2 and Q3. The reason why we left out Q1 is there's a bit of back and forth. It's not celebrating the win, but it's usually getting prepared with the internal partners to be able to deliver on the inception. So we have a bit of planning that goes into that. So that is what we have planned for now. We will be able to communicate to you, because we now have a database of your contacts. We will be able to communicate to you if this plan changes, because we still need you back here for the inception and also the inception phase and also the launch. Julia, that's all right? Great. So what do? I call? You can now proceed to call. Yes. Paul had requested me to tell you that that after we are done with the closing remarks, before we go for lunch, if we can parade ourselves here. I don't know whether it's here. That would be good for a group photo, or I don't know where. I think the camera, the documentation team will be able to tell us. But we need a group photo when we conclude. And now I'm going to invite Joseph Murabula. Joseph Murabula is here on several capacities. One, as part of the content contributors, which is really important for us, but also as a member of the KCV board. Joseph sits in the KCV board. In the KCV board, Joseph represents the KCV shareholder. Yeah. So now you know, if I don't incorporate what has been said in this workshop, the shareholder is actually looking at me with, yeah, so I will give Joseph an opportunity to give us the closing remarks, and then we'll do the group photo and the other logistics for lunch. Joseph.
Thank you, Victor. First of all, let me say I'm very happy to see all of you. It's already afternoon, so let me say good afternoon. Good afternoon. Good afternoon again. Good afternoon. Yeah, so between me and lunch, it's just the group photo. And I'm sure many of you are already calculating the distance to lunch in terms of time. And so I'll be very, very brief so that I don't keep you waiting for very long. So mine is probably the easiest of tasks today, which is basically to give closing remarks, and I may as well just say we are closed, and that is it. But let me say something in the next 2 minutes, and then we can close. First of all, let me say that this initiative is very, very timely, and the contribution of all of you is extremely important. A couple of years ago, KCIC did a study in terms of the climate finance landscape in this country. What was found, I think, is something that's now known generally to all of you, that the bulk of the money is going to mitigation. About 88, say 90% of that money is of all climate finance money is actually going to mitigation, and very, very little to adaptation. 11.7, say 12% going to adaptation. What that basically means is that we need to do more in terms of the adaptation side, not just to catch up with the mitigation, but also to be able to achieve the global targets. As we know, generally the global target is to keep global warming to below 2 degrees compared to pre-industrial levels, and if we are ambitious about 1.5. There's already a lot of fear that we will not be able to achieve those targets. And in fact, there's already a commission of very, very important people called the Overshoot Commission, which is basically working on risk of overshoot. These are very eminent international people. And you can begin to see that the very fact that they're already looking at this means that we're already working in very dangerous waters. We might not be able to achieve those targets. And so initiatives like this are extremely important. I personally have learned quite a bit today. At least I was in the group I was in. The first comment that was given was that we need to rethink our eligibility criteria in terms of our Greenpeace program. Actually, it was said, who here represents KCIC, please go and rethink your eligibility criteria, because you cannot be talking adaptation and you have an eligibility criteria that is, has a lot of heavy return connotations, because that is a mitigation criteria, not an adaptation criteria. So I have learned quite a bit that we are going to not just incorporate in the design of this program, but also incorporate in terms of feedback to our existing programs. So with those few remarks, I think let me say thank you very much. You've been a very excellent group. You've contributed quite a lot. I'm sure when the final document comes out, you will see a lot of what you've contributed today. We are, of course, looking forward to engaging again with all of you post this event, and implementation of this fund when finally it comes on course. So thank you very much, and have a very nice afternoon and a very nice Labor Day next week. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Joseph. I think this is one of the most, I would say insightful sessions that I personally have, one, coordinated, and then two, participated in. I tried to visit some of the breakout sessions, and I think everybody here feels part and parcel of this project. And so, Victor, going forward, we will need each and everyone who is in this room to know and also to track and see exactly where they fall and where they fit in. So I know I've pitched for you. That said, I know we are now 30 minutes past lunch, but before that we will do a photo session just outside the door. We've arranged some space for the photo, for the group photo, so we'll just go there after I finish for that. Then after the photo session, all of us will go to the second floor. You can use the elevator. Once you on the second floor, you turn right. There'll be an hotel written Baluba Hotel. Okay, still within the same hotel. So don't. There's an hotel within the hotel called Baluba. So don't go outside the gate and look for Baluba. It is within this hotel. And that is where we'll be having our lunch. Again, take the elevator, second floor, right turn. I want to take this opportunity to invite all of you to clap for yourselves for a very good work. 1, 2, 3. Very well. So we will be led by people sitting in this front row. Just there's some seats there, please, at the photo session. Then the rest of us can stand behind them. The person who has been leading you is called Kennedy Horuma. I'm a consultant. I do events like this, as well as development communication and stakeholder engagement. So if you have a similar activity, let's talk. People are not sure whether we are done. Oh, there's something you're waiting for. Okay, maybe I know probably what you're waiting for. After this, we'll be eating at the second floor.
My name is Humphrey Watanga. I am a corporate finance and transaction advisor, and I sit on the investment committee of KCV. It's fairly positive. We have a positive business environment for investment, given that we have a very entrepreneurial society, a very innovative society. And when you're looking for investment, I think that's the beginning point. You need to have a context where you have entrepreneurs who can innovate, who can come up with investable businesses. So in that regard, I think Kenya is quite strong in that way. And also we have a supportive macro environment. Kenya is very advanced from a digital technology standpoint. And increasingly, most of the investee companies that we look at are companies that are underpinned by technology. And Kenya is quite advanced in that regard. Also from a policy environment, the government is also quite keen to support small, medium enterprises from a policy perspective. A lot more needs to be done, but I think we're on the right track in that regard. We are looking to invest in climate smart solutions. That's the beginning point. But within that context, we're also looking to underpin, invest in growth stage companies. These are companies that have proven business models, that have strong founders. They've been out in the market in terms of rolling out their business or their solutions, and I would say they're probably revenue positive and moving towards profitability. When we are developing pipeline, looking for these entities, we review their businesses, we analyze their businesses, we undertake due diligence, and in my view, that process in and of itself is quite fundamentally important, because it helps the entrepreneurs and the investee candidates that we are looking at to think more critically about the businesses, to identify the gaps, So that in and of itself is a value add. Secondly, obviously, is the provision of the required capital. These entities are coming to KCV because, for the most part, they're looking for growth capital. So that's a big part that we provide. But above and beyond providing capital, we also provide technical assistance. We work with these companies. We invest in a very pointed way, because we're investing in companies. Perhaps they're looking to acquire a technology in order to expand a certain business line, or they're looking for technical expertise. So we also provide that. And finally, as KCV, we are very keen on improving and strengthening the governance of our investee entities. We have members who will sit on the boards of these entities, so that we can work with them. They can improve and strengthen their governance. I think we are, I'll say, a pioneering investment entity in the climate smart space, and to the extent that climate investing is beginning to really take root and take off in this country, in this region. I think one can say that KCV has really contributed to that space in terms of informing the market, bringing awareness to this space, and also providing practical solutions in terms of investment methodology, and just the follow-up, the technical assistance that we provide to our entities. KCV has invested in over 20 entities, 20 enterprises, and for the most part, through our approach in analyzing, doing due diligence, working with the founders, providing capital, providing support from a technical perspective, from a governance perspective, we have seen over 70-75% of our investee entities actually achieve that original objective of growth and scaling. And equally more important, from the funding that we've invested, we've actually generated returns from our funding, which means we've invested profitably, and that allows for the sustainability of KCV as a fund, as an entity. We're generally looking in sort of the climate smart space. So we're looking at enterprises in agribusiness, in water, waste management, commercial forestry. So areas that have an impact, positive impact from a climate perspective. For the most part, when you're investing in this sort of early stage, going to the growth stage timelines, for the most part, you're actually investing in the entrepreneur, sometimes the founders or whoever is the leadership of the organization. So we pay close attention to the entrepreneurs themselves, their motivation, their capabilities, their leadership. I think that's a key starting point. And then you also look at the business itself. As I said, we want businesses that have a proven, viable business model. So we just dig deep into the business itself and see how it's positioned in the market space relative to the competition, whether this is a space that would allow for growth. So you look at those aspects. Then we look at issues to do with just the expertise in the enterprise, where they have the right technology, the right expertise, and to the extent they don't, maybe that's where we can come in and support. And other related issues, the strength of their governance from a financial management perspective. I think so we look at those, both the technical side, the broader market issues, the leadership of it, the technology and technical expertise, that is in place, and if not in place, perhaps it's an area that we can come in and support. Number one is finding sort of investable, sort of project-ready, investable enterprises. I think we've been lucky to, as KCV, to have developed a robust pipeline in that regard. So I think, and that's a significant part of KCV's time is going out and identifying these investable entities. So that's sort of challenge number one. But I think in the case of KCV, we are often able to overcome that, given the quality of the pipeline that we develop. Issues also, as I said, with the strength and leadership of the enterprises themselves. Oftentimes, for the most part, we have very strong, motivated founders that are able to lead and advance their entities. But occasionally, you will come across founders who don't have that level of strength and commitment, and that becomes a challenge in and of itself. And then there are just the broader macro business risks that one might not anticipate. We had the instance of COVID 2 years ago that really impacted on a number of businesses across board. We also invest quite heavily in the agribusiness sector, and you have an instance the past couple of years where we're experiencing drought, and that impacts on our investees.
The world is in dire need for water, a natural resource that is getting scarce day by day. The global population surge that increases demand for the product worsens the situation. Termed by many as the bedroom for many Kenyans who work within the Nairobi city, Ongata Rongai is one of the areas experiencing water scarcity. The busy roads every morning and evening clearly demonstrates how its population is steadily growing, resulting to high demand for water. Many of the residents access water through boreholes and water vendors. Due to the ongoing drought, water levels have significantly gone down as the demand increases with the population. This has seen some homeowners with domestic boreholes start commercializing the commodity. Some of the challenges faced by the residents are increased cost of water, which has seen them pay higher amounts than normal.
Unapata like ile mshahara kidogo umepata katika ile biashara, unatumia pesa mingi sana kununua maji. Salon tunauziwa mtungi kama 100. Katika hiyo 100 ukiangalia hata maybe umepata client mmoja kwa watu wa salon, kwa watu wa vinyozi, amekulipa 100 bob. Hiyo 100 bob ndio umenunulia. Sasa umetumia blow dry, umetumia vitu mingi sana. Please, county government ya Kajiado, county government ya Ongata Rongai, tunaomba tafadhali mtuangalie katika hili swala. Tunaumia sisi kama wananchi.
Stacy Adhiambo, a resident of Rongai, narrates how the water charges have increased over the last few months.
So recently, the prices were increased in our apartment, to be specific, and it was inconvenience because now we had to look for other ways to get the money to pay the bill, because we also have other bills to pay, and the budget is a little bit, the economy how it is.
Climate change has greatly contributed to this situation. Water pollution and poor management of water resources has greatly led to the scarcity, affecting the country's economic activities. The Kajiado County Board Administrator acknowledges the current water situation majorly caused by drought.
Currently, there's a global crisis born of global indicators of drought. Drought has been a problem, devastating most homes and affecting livelihoods. That being the case, county government of Kajiado is not different from other areas that are being affected by the drought. Remember, the county of Kajiado is an ASAL county where we are having arid and semi-arid environments and a mix-up.
Ombogo says that the blame should not be put on the county government, but drought that has resulted into drying up of water reservoirs.
We will not blame anyone for the loss, for the little levels of supply of water in Rongai. Like I said earlier, remember we are dam dependent in supply of water. So where the county government had reservoirs, you can be sure the hydraulic levels are low. So pumping of the same water could be an issue. You notice that people are complaining there is no water in the pipes, but the truth of the matter is there is no water in the reservoirs. If there is, it's little to associated with the pumping as it were before.
Residents who purchase water from the vendors have also cried foul over the hiked prices for water. Christine, who runs a grocery, recounts her predicaments.
Nafanya kazi ya green grocer. Shida yenye tunaye kabisa ni maji. Maji wanatusia bei kali. 20 liters wanauza 20 bob, saa zingine tunanunua 10, saa zingine tunanunua 35, na mbeleni tulikuwa tunanunua 5 bob.
With majority expressing their plight, it